Good morning, children. Today we are going to discuss a beautiful poem from your textbook. The name of the poem is A Legend of the Northland, written by Fob Carey. This poem narrates the legend of an old lady who angered Saint Peter because of her greed. You can see there are two characters in this lesson. Character number one, an old lady who angered Saint Peter. Second character is Saint Peter himself. Now you enjoy the poem. Away, away in the Northland. Do you understand? Away means far away. In the Northland. Northland means in the area where North Pole is there. There are many countries in this region. So, this legend takes place in the Northland. The poet says, the hours of the day are few. Away, away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through. The poet says, in the Northland, which is very far away from our areas, the days are hours of the days are few, means days are shorter, and the nights are so long in winter. The hours of night are so long that they cannot sleep them through. It means they means people cannot sleep them. Them means nights because hours are long. So people cannot sleep for a long time. They can sleep for limited hours. Can you tell me what is the scene of the story? Scene is the Northland. What kind of place is it? It is a far off place in the north. In winter, it is always snowing. Here, days are short and nights are quite long. Why are the hours of the day few and the nights so long in Northland? In the polar region, like the Northland, the nights are longer, the days are shorter. Therefore, They have few hours. Means people have few hours of the day. Why cannot the people sleep through the long nights? In the Northland, the nights are very long. The people of Northland cannot sleep for such long hours during the wintry nights. Can you tell me? Away, away. The word has been repeated here. Means remote region in north. Paragraph number 2. Where they harness the swift reindeer to the sledges when it snows, and the children look like bears' cubs in their funny furry clothes. The people describe, the poet describes about the animals of the region and children of the region. Harness means fastening of a reindeer to a sledge. Here they means people of Northland harness the swift reindeer. Swift is fast moving. Reindeer is an animal found in the polar regions. To the sledges when it snows. Sledges are wheelless carts. Wheelless. Sledges have no wheels. So these sledges are drawn on snow. These are wheelless carts. And the children look like bear's cubs. They look like of the bear little ones. They look like bear cubs in their funny. They look strange furry clothes. They wear clothes made from the fur, skin of animals because cold is at its peak. Can you answer my questions? Where do they harness? Means where do the people of Northland harness the swift reindeer and why? The people of the Northland harness the swift reindeer to the sledges. In these areas, a reindeer is used to pull the wheelless carts that is called sledges. Sledges. It also pulls the sledges on the snow. What is a sledge? Can you tell me? Just you have learned. Where is it generally used? A sledge is a wheelless cart. It is used in the polar region. Like the Northland, it is generally pulled by reindeers on the snow. How do the children of the Northland look like and why? They look like the children of the Northland look like the bear's cubs. भालुओं के बच्चे जैसे. They look so because they wear funny and furry dresses. Just I have told you, they wear the dress made of skin of animals. Can you explain like bears, cubs? Yes, in funny furry dresses, children look like bear cubs. They tell them a curious story. I don't believe it is true. And yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. They tell them, means people of Northland tell a curious story, a strange story. The poet says, I don't believe it is true. And yet you may learn a lesson. But the poet says, after listening this story, you can learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. Dear children, tell means to say. Spelling is be careful. Tell, tell means say. Other tale is Tale, tale means a story. Can you remember a third tale that is Tail, that is body part of an animal? Poonch. So you should be clear about three tales. First is Tell, second is Tale, and third is Tail. Why does the poet call it a curious story? The poet calls it a curious or a strange story. The poem is a legend of an old lady. She made St. Peter angry to curse her to be a bird. The story is a popular ballad. It may not be true, but the change of the lady to a bird is quite strange. That is why the poet has says it a curious story. Do you believe that the story is true? Give one reason. The poem is a popular legend. No, it is not based on true facts. The line I don't believe it is true clears this point. What lesson does the tale give to you? The tale conveys an important lesson or message. Greed is a great vice. It kills human values in us. Greedy persons like the old lady are always punished in the end. That is why this lesson we receive from this story. Can you search a word in this paragraph which means strange? The word is curious. Paragraph number 4. Once when the legend good Saint Peter, once when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about it, preaching just as he did, you know. Saint Peter is a great saint of Christians. World below on the earth. What was he doing? Once when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below. World below means below on the earth. Generally, he lived in the heaven, but once he came on the earth and walked about it. He was walking on the earth. And what was he doing? He was preaching, means giving sermons, just as he did, you know. Can you tell me, is Saint Peter alive today? Which lines answer the question? No, Saint Peter is not alive today. He is in heaven. Once when the good Saint Peter lived in the world below, the above mentioned lines clearly tell us that Saint Peter is not in the world below or alive today. Who was Saint Peter and what did he used to do? Very easy for you. Saint Peter was an apostle of Christ. His mission was to preach the teaching of Christ among the people. For this purpose, he traveled far and wide. Can you explain in detail? And walked about it, preaching. Saint Peter was a missionary. He walked about different places and preached the teaching of Christ. Can you find a word in the passage which means sermoning? Sermons, sermoning, that is preaching. He came to the door of a cottage. Cottage means house. In traveling round the earth, who came to the door of a cottage? Saint Peter. Where a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. Baking means cooking in an oven. Hearth is a stove where we cook our food. Listen again. He came to the door of a cottage. Means Saint Peter came to the door of a cottage in traveling around the earth. When he was traveling around the earth for preaching, Here, a little woman, the little woman was making cakes in her cottage and baking them on the hearth. She was baking the cakes on the hearth. Hearth is a stove. Why did Saint Peter travel round the earth? Can you answer me my question? Saint Peter was an apostle of Christ. His mission was to preach the teachings of Christ to the people. For this mission, he had to travel round the earth. Where did he come at the end of the day? At the end of the day, he come to the door of a cottage where an old lady lived. What did Saint Peter see when he come to the door of a cottage? He saw a little woman baking cakes on the stove. Can you tell me the word which in the passage which means oven? That is hearth. And being faint with fasting, for the day was almost done. He asked her from her a store of cakes to give him a single one. And being faint, Saint Peter had become weak due to fasting. For days he had not eaten at all. That is why he was weak. For the day was almost done. Means the day was about to end. It means it was evening. He asked her, who is he? He is Saint Peter. Who is her? Her is the lady, old lady. From he asked her from her store of cakes. She had cooked or baked many cakes. So that is why the word a store of cakes has been written here. To give him a single one, he demanded one cake from the lady. What part of the day was it when Saint Peter reached the door of the cottage? It was almost the time for the sunset. The day had almost ended. Describe Saint Peter's condition when he arrived at the cottage. Saint Peter was fasting. Traveling and fasting had made him weak, tired, and hungry. What did Saint Peter ask for and why? Saint Peter asked for a single cake from her store of cakes because he was hungry. Can you explain The day was almost done. Yes, you can say the day was about to end. It was the time of sunset. That is why this is the day was about to end. So she made a very little cake. When St. Peter demanded a cake from her store, she made a very little cake. But as it baking lay, she looked at it and thought it seemed too large to give away. Dear children, the problem starts here. This is very important line, important paragraph for you to understand. She made a very little cake. When St. Peter demanded a cake from her store, from the store of cakes of the lady, but as it baking lay, but when she was baking the cake, which was very little or small, she looked at it and thought it seemed very important line, thought it seemed when she was baking the cake, which was very small. She thought it seemed means it appeared her too large to give away. Actually, the bread or the cake was very small, but it appeared too large to her because she had to give the cake to Saint Peter. Why did she make a very little cake? Why not a big one? The little woman was very greedy. She did not make a big cake knowingly to save same dough. She made a small and not a bigger cake. How did the little cake appear to her? Even that a small cake seemed very big to her. She did not want to give it away because she was greedy by nature. Why did not the old lady give that little cake to Saint Peter? The little lady was a greedy creature, greedy woman. Knowingly, she made a very little cake for Saint Peter, but even it appeared too big to her. She did not want to give it away. Dear children, can you search a word from this passage which means appeared? I have told you it is seemed in the passage. Therefore, she needed another. The problem starts. First of all, she tried to make a very small cake, and she felt that the cake is very big because she had to give Saint Peter. Now, see paragraph number 8. Therefore, she needed another and still a smaller one. But it looked, when she turned it over, a large as the first had done. Remember the meaning of needed? Kneaded means made dough. Dough. Before preparing a bread or cake, the flour is converted into dough. You have learnt in science. Therefore, she needed another. Means she made dough for another cake and still a smaller one. It was also a small. It was smaller than the first one, which was also a small, but it looked when she turned it over. But when at the time when she was turned over and under means when she was cooking or baking it, and when she saw, she felt as large as the first had done. She felt as she had made the first cake, which was small, as large as the first had done. Why did she need another? The little old lady was very greedy. She could not afford to give a big cake to Saint Peter. She wanted to save some more flour. So she kneaded the flour again and again to make a smaller cake. What was the size of the second cake? The second cake was smaller in size than the first one. Why did not she give the second cake to Saint Peter? Even the second cake appeared to be too big to be given away. So she did not give it to Saint Peter. Can you explain needed another in the first line? The old lady needed the flour to make another cake. So, dear children, you listen this lesson again and again. Today, I am going to assign one paragraph only. I expect you will answer my question. Paragraph number 7 is there for your work. So you have to answer in your Google Classroom Today I shall try to post or upload the questions, and within or 1 or 2 days you have to answer my questions. The rest part of the poem will be discussed in our next period. Thank you, children. Thank you a lot.